Welcome back to American Coin Value. In today's exciting video, we're counting down the top 5 rare and valuable coins that could be hiding in your pocket change or old coin collection. Some of these coins may look ordinary at first, but unusual errors, rare varieties, low surviving populations, and exceptional condition can make certain examples highly desirable to collectors. So stay with us until the end, because number 1 could be the most surprising coin on our list. Let's begin the countdown and discover what makes these 5 coins so special. And remember, always check your coins carefully before spending them. You never know what hidden treasure you might have. Let's get started. First up. In today's video, we are taking a close look at the 1994 D Washington quarter dollar, a coin that millions of people have handled, without realizing that condition, minting quality, and collector demand can make certain examples much more interesting than their face value. So before you spend a 1994 quarter, take a moment to examine the date, mint mark, surfaces, and overall condition, because you may be looking at a collectible rather than an ordinary 25-cent coin. The 1994 D Washington quarter was produced at the Denver Mint as part of the long-running Washington Quarter series. The Washington Quarter was introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth and became one of the most familiar denominations in American coinage. By 1994, the United States Mint was producing large quantities of circulating clad quarters for everyday commerce. The 1994 D issue was made from a copper-nickel outer layer bonded to a copper core, rather than the 90% silver composition used on Washington quarters, dated 1964 and earlier. This distinction is extremely important for collectors because a normal 1994 D quarter does not contain the valuable silver content found in older Washington quarters. One of the first things to examine on this coin is the obverse, or front. It features the famous portrait of George Washington facing left, along with the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date 1994. On the reverse is the classic eagle design with the inscriptions United States of America, EPLURBUSUNUM, quarter dollar, and United. The small letter D near the lower right area of the obverse identifies the Denver Mint. The coin has a standard diameter of about 24.3 millimeters and weighs approximately 5.67 grams when in normal condition. These basic characteristics are useful when checking whether coin is genuine and when comparing it with other Washington quarters. Now let's talk about rarity, because this is where collectors need to be careful. The 1994 D Washington quarter is not considered rare in ordinary circulated grades. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of examples, so finding a circulated 1994 D quarter is generally not difficult. A coin described simply as being in fine condition will normally have noticeable wear on Washington's portrait and the eagle on the reverse, and such an example is usually worth only a small premium, if any, over its face value. However, rarity can change dramatically when we move into exceptionally preserved, high-grade certified examples. Coins that survived circulation with unusually sharp strikes, attractive surfaces, and very little contact damage can become considerably more desirable to serious collectors. This is why the condition of your 1994 D quarter matters so much. A fine condition example is interesting as part of a collection, but it should not automatically be described as a rare fortune. In the present market, a normal circulated 1994 D quarter in fine condition is generally $445,000, with some attractive or unusual pieces potentially bringing a modest premium. Uncirculated coins can be worth more, and professionally graded coins at very high mint state levels can bring substantially higher prices. Exceptional certified specimens have the greatest potential because advanced collectors compete for coins that reach the top grades for the date and mint mark. Auction records for high-grade coins can therefore be dramatically different from the value of an ordinary circulated quarter. When you hear claims online that every 1994 D quarter is worth hundreds, thousands, or even enormous amounts of money, remember that such claims often confuse an exceptional auction result with the value of an ordinary coin. A spectacular price when it occurs generally applies to a specific coin with a particular grade, certification, condition, or unusual error, not to every quarter carrying the same date and mint mark. For a fine condition 1994 D Washington quarter, the realistic expectation is much more modest. The big money possibility comes from identifying something genuinely unusual, such as a major mint error, an extraordinary condition rarity, or a top-grade certified specimen. Collectors should therefore inspect the coin carefully under good lighting. Look for unusual doubling on the lettering or date, major off-center strikes, missing design elements, broad strikes, clipped planchets, unusual die damage, or other characteristics that appear to have happened during the minting process. Be cautious, however, because scratches, dents, machine damage, stains, and ordinary wear are not automatically valuable mint errors. If you believe your quarter has an important error, comparison with recognized error varieties and professional authentication can help determine whether the feature is genuine. Another important tip is never to clean the coin in an attempt to make it look more valuable. Scrubbing, polishing, chemicals, or abrasive materials can permanently damage the original surface and may reduce collector interest. Keep your coin in a safe, non-abrasive holder and handle it by the edges whenever possible. If you discover an exceptionally sharp 1994D quarter with brilliant original surfaces and almost no marks, professional grading may be worth considering, especially if the potential value justifies the cost of certification. So what should you remember about the 1994D Washington quarter? It is a common modern clad issue in circulated condition, and a fine example is generally not a high-dollar rarity, but that does not mean you should ignore it. Coin collecting is all about condition, varieties, errors, rarity, and demand. A seemingly ordinary quarter can become much more interesting if it possesses a genuine minting error or survives in an unusually high grade. The difference between a common circulated coin and an exceptional certified example can be enormous, which is exactly why collectors continue searching through old collections, rolls, jars, and pocket change. In conclusion, the 1994D Washington quarter is a fascinating piece of modern American coinage, and an excellent example of why collectors should examine coins carefully before spending them. Its normal fine condition value is generally close to face value, while pristine and exceptional examples can command stronger prices in the collector and auction markets. The key is not simply the date, 1994, or the D mint mark. It is the combination of condition, originality, rarity, verified errors, and actual collector demand. If you have a 1994D quarter, check it carefully, protect it from damage, and never assume a huge value without evidence from comparable sales or professional grading. And remember, the next interesting coin could already be sitting unnoticed in your collection or pocket chain. Next up. Today, we are taking a close look at the 1973 Washington quarter with no mint mark, a coin that many people might overlook because it looks like an ordinary 25-cent piece. But before you spend one, it is worth understanding exactly what you have. This 1973 quarter was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, where coins normally carried no mint mark, and an enormous 346,924,000 examples were struck. That means the ordinary circulated 1973 no mint mark quarter is not considered a rare coin simply because it has no mint mark. However, condition, exceptional preservation, varieties, and certified high-grade examples can make certain pieces much more interesting to collectors. The Washington quarter has a long and important place in American coinage. The design honoring George Washington was introduced in 1932, and by 1973, the quarter had already become one of the most familiar denominations in everyday American life. The 1973 issue belongs to the modern copper-nickel clad era rather than the earlier silver era. The coin was designed by John Flanagan and measures approximately 24.3 millimeters across and weighs about 5.67 grams. Its composition is copper-nickel over pure copper center, which gives the edge its characteristic copper-colored appearance when viewed closely. In 1973, Philadelphia produced the no mint mark business strike quarter, while Denver produced a separate issue carrying the D mint mark. On the obverse, you will see the familiar portrait of President George Washington facing left, with the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date 1973. One of the most important things to check is the area near the date. Unlike a Denver quarter, there is no letter D there because this coin was struck at Philadelphia. On the reverse, the coin displays the American eagle with outstretched wings, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, EPLUIBUSUNUM, and quarter dollar. The edge is reeded, with many small grooves running around the circumference. These details help identify an authentic 1973 Washington quarter and distinguish it from other dates and mint varieties. Now comes the most important question. Is the 1973 Washington quarter with no mint mark actually rare? In normal circulated condition, the answer is generally no. With a mintage of 346,924,000, this is a plentiful issue, and an ordinary fine condition example usually does not command a dramatic premium. The important distinction is between a common date and an exceptional example. Collectors become much more interested when a 1973 no mint mark quarter survives in unusually high uncirculated condition, with strong luster, sharp details, minimal marks, and excellent eye appeal. PCGS records an auction result of $2,880 for a 1973 Philadelphia quarter, graded MS-68, sold by Heritage Auctions on August 31, 2026. This demonstrates how dramatically value can increase when an otherwise common coin reaches an extraordinary certified grade. So what could your 1973 no-mint mark Washington quarter be worth today? If your coin is a normal circulated example in fine condition, you should not expect 40 hundreds or 45 thousands of dollars. Current market references show that ordinary 1973 quarters are generally inexpensive, while high-grade certified examples can bring substantially more. One market source lists recent examples of 1973 Philadelphia quarters in certified MS-67 condition, 1,816,000. These figures are important because they show that condition is the major factor. A fine condition coin with normal circulation, whereas fundamentally different from a nearly flawless coin preserved for more than 50 years. Auction prices also change depending on certification, appeal, buyer competition, and the exact grade, so no single price is guaranteed. If you have a 1973 quarter without a mint mark, do not immediately assume that it is a rare treasure, but do not throw it away either. First, examine both sides carefully under good lighting. Look for unusual doubling, striking abnormalities, missing design details, or other genuine mint errors. Pay particular attention to the surfaces because scratches, cleaning, stains, and heavy contact marks can greatly reduce collector appeal. Never clean the coin with chemicals, polishing materials, or abrasive cloths, because cleaning can permanently damage the original surface and may hurt its value. If your coin appears exceptionally sharp and nearly uncirculated, professional grading may be worth considering, especially because the difference between an ordinary circulated quarter and an elite certified example can be enormous. Remember, however, that grading fees should be considered carefully before submitting a common coin. In conclusion, the 1973 Washington quarter with no mint mark is a fascinating example of how coin value works. The coin itself is not automatically rare simply because it lacks a mint mark. In fact, the absence of a mint mark is normal for the Philadelphia issue, and more than 346 million were produced. But this ordinary-looking quarter becomes much more interesting when it is found in exceptional condition or with a legitimate mint error. The documented $2,880 MS-68 auction record shows just how far the value of a common-date coin can rise when rarity is created by extraordinary preservation and top-grade certification. So before you spend that old 1973 quarter, take a second look. Check the date, confirm that there is no mint mark, examine the surfaces, and compare its condition with professionally graded examples. You may not have a fortune in your hand, but you could have a coin worth keeping, and that is what makes coin collecting so exciting.
Next up today, we are taking a close look at the 1981 D Washington quarter, a coin that many people may still find in old collections, jars, boxes, or circulated coinage. At first glance, this quarter may look like an ordinary 25-cent piece, but collectors know that condition, minting characteristics, errors, and scarcity can make an otherwise common coin much more interesting. So could your 1981 D Washington quarter be worth more than its face value? In this video, we will explore its history, design, rarity, collector interest, realistic market values, and the important features you should check before spending it. The Washington quarter has one of the longest and most recognizable histories in American coinage. The series began in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The original design was created by sculptor John Flanagan, whose portrait of Washington appeared on the obverse, while an eagle was featured on the reverse. By 1981, the quarter had already been produced for decades and had become one of the most familiar denominations in everyday American commerce. The 1981 D issue was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small letter D located on the obverse side of the coin near the bottom of Washington's portrait. The 1981 D Washington quarter is made of a copper-nickel outer layer bonded to a copper core, rather than the 90% silver composition used by Washington quarters struck for circulation before 1965. The coin has a face value of 25 cents, a diameter of approximately 24.3 millimeters, and a reeded edge. On the front, you will see George Washington facing left, with the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date 1981. The reverse displays an eagle with outstretched wings, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, EPLUOBUSUNUM, and quarter dollar. The Denver Mint mark is particularly important because it identifies the facility where the coin was produced. Here is where collectors need to be careful. A normal 1981 D Washington quarter is not generally considered an extremely rare coin simply because it carries the 1981 date and Denver mint mark. Large numbers were produced, and many examples survived in circulation. However, that does not mean every 1981 D quarter is worthless. Collectors become much more interested when a coin has an unusual minting era, exceptional preservation, strong original luster, attractive surfaces, or a very high certified grade. A circulated example with heavy wear will usually have modest value, while a spectacular era or unusually high-grade example can command substantially more. This distinction is extremely important because internet videos and advertisements sometimes suggest that every ordinary 1981 D quarter is automatically worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. In reality, significant premiums depend on the specific coin and its condition. So what could a circulated 1981 D Washington quarter be worth in today's market? For an ordinary circulated example with typical wear and no major error, the value is generally close to $445,000 value, although a collector may pay a small premium depending on the coin's appearance and the circumstances of the sale. In circulated grades such as good, very fine, or extremely fine, you should not automatically expect a huge auction price. Coins in unusually strong condition can be worth more, particularly when they have sharp details, attractive surfaces, and little evidence of damage. The biggest prices are normally associated with exceptional certified specimens or significant, authenticated mint errors rather than ordinary circulated pieces. Therefore, if you hear claims of a 1981 D quarter selling for $1,900s or $25,000, make sure the specific coin, grade, era, and auction result are being discussed rather than assuming that value applies to every 1981 D quarter. Before you spend your 1981 D quarter, examine it carefully under good lighting. Look closely at the date, the Denver D mint mark, Washington's portrait, lettering, rims, and the reverse design. Search for unusual doubling, dramatic off-center strikes, clipped planchets, missing design elements, major die breaks, or other genuine minting abnormalities. Also inspect the edge for anything unusual. However, remember that scratches, dents, corrosion, discoloration, machine damage, and post-mint alterations are not normally valuable mint errors. If you believe you have an important variety or major error, professional authentication and grading can be worthwhile before making a major valuation claim. If you discover a 1981 D Washington quarter in circulation, do not clean it. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surface and may reduce collector appeal. Handle valuable examples by their edges and consider storing them in an appropriate coin holder or protective flip. If your coin appears to have an unusual error or exceptional condition, compare it with authenticated examples and consider submitting it to a respected professional grading service. Most importantly, learn to separate genuine rarity from internet hype. A coin can be interesting and collectible without being worth a fortune, and understanding that difference will help you make smarter decisions as a collector. The 1981 D Washington quarter is a fascinating example of modern American coinage. While an ordinary circulated specimen is generally not a guaranteed high-dollar rarity, its story becomes much more exciting when you discover an unusual error, an outstanding grade, or another distinctive characteristic. That is why every old coin deserves a second look before it is spent. So check your 1981 D quarters carefully, compare their condition and features, and remember that professional authentication is the best way to confirm an extraordinary discovery. Next up. Today we are looking at a 1988 Washington quarter with the P mint mark, and more specifically, a circulated example. At first glance, this coin may look like an ordinary 25-cent piece, but every collector knows that the real story is in the date, mint mark, condition, and possible varieties or errors. So before you spend your 1988 P quarter, let's take a closer look and find out what it is actually worth in today's market. The 1988 P Washington quarter was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and approximately 562,052,000 examples were produced. The P mint mark is important because Philadelphia began placing the P mint mark on Washington quarters in 1980. The coin belongs to the copper-nickel-clad era of the Washington quarter series, which means it is not a traditional 90% silver quarter. According to PCGS, the 1988 P quarter weighs about 5.67 grams, measures approximately 24.3 millimeters across, and has a reeded edge. The Washington quarter itself has a long and important history. The series began in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The design created by John Flanagan became one of the most recognizable designs in American coinage. By 1988, the quarter was already a familiar part of everyday American life, passing through millions of hands in stores, vending machines, banks, and cash registers. The Philadelphia mint production from 1988 was enormous, so an ordinary circulated 1988 P quarter is not considered a major rarity simply because of its age. Now let's examine the unique features of the coin. On the obverse, you will see the familiar portrait of George Washington facing left. Around the portrait are the inscriptions Liberty and In God We Trust, along with the date 1988. The small P mint mark identifies Philadelphia production. On the reverse is the classic American eagle design, with the inscriptions United States of America, EPLUOBUSUNUM, and quarter dollar. The edge is reeded, and the coin is made from copper-nickel clad over a copper center. These details can help you authenticate the coin and compare it with other Washington quarters from the same period. Here is where the story becomes especially interesting for collectors. The 1988 P quarter is not rare in circulated condition. In fact, professional price information indicates that circulated examples generally trade around face value. Numismatic currently lists the 1988 P around 25 cents in its lower circulated grades, while another market guide also describes circulated 1988 quarters as essentially face value coins. So if you have an ordinary circulated example with scratches, contact marks, where on Washington's hair and cheek, and general signs of circulation, it normally should not be advertised as a coin worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. However, there is an important difference between a circulated coin and an exceptional uncirculated example. High-grade 1988 P quarters can attract much more attention because truly superb examples are considerably harder to find than ordinary circulated pieces. PCGS reports a population and survival structure showing that many examples exist overall, but the finest grades are much more selective. Most importantly, PCGS records an auction result of $750 for a 1988 P Washington quarter graded MS67, sold on eBay in November 2026. This is an excellent example of why condition can dramatically change the value of a modern-era coin. So what about the current market value in dollars? For the specific circulated 1988 P quarter discussed in this video, a realistic expectation is generally of $15,1200s, with ordinary circulated examples not commanding the dramatic auction prices sometimes claimed online. Some collector or dealer situations may bring a small premium depending on eye appeal, unusual characteristics, or the exact condition, but a normal circulated example should not automatically be valued at $9,900s or $70,000s of dollars. The much larger prices belong to exceptional certified high-grade coins or genuinely significant errors and varieties. This is why collectors should be very careful when they hear claims that every 1988 P quarter is a rare coin worth thousands. A coin can be old enough to interest collectors without actually being scarce. More than 562 million 1988 P quarters were struck, which means the date itself does not make the coin rare. The real opportunity is finding something unusual within that large population. A major minting error, an important die variety, an unusually strong strike, or an exceptionally high certified grade could make a particular example much more interesting than an ordinary circulated coin. If you find a 1988 P quarter in your collection, start by checking the mint mark and date carefully. Look at Washington's portrait, the lettering, the rim, the edge, and the reverse design. Search for unusual doubling, missing design elements, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, or other genuine mint-made abnormalities. Be cautious though, because damage caused after the coin left the mint can sometimes look like an error. Scratches, dents, machine damage, and environmental wear generally do not create major numismatic value. Condition is also extremely important. A circulated coin with heavy wear is very different from a pristine coin that has never entered normal commerce. If you believe your 1988 P quarter is unusually sharp and nearly flawless, professional grading may be worth considering, particularly if the coin appears capable of reaching a very high mint state grade. The $750 PCGS recorded auction result demonstrates that the upper end of the market can be dramatically different from the value of an ordinary circulated example. Collectors should also remember that auction prices are not guaranteed prices. An auction record represents a particular coin in a particular grade sold under particular circumstances. It does not mean every coin of the same year and mint mark will sell for the same amount. When evaluating your own coin, compare it with recent sales of coins in the same grade and with the same variety or era. Professional certification from a respected grading service can also help establish condition and authenticity when a coin appears genuinely valuable. So, is the 1988 P Washington quarter a rare treasure? The answer is more complicated than a simple yes or no. An ordinary circulated 1988 P quarter is generally common and usually worth about 25 cents, but exceptional examples can tell a very different story. The documented $750 auction result for an MS-67 example proves that the best condition pieces can attract serious collector interest. That is the lesson every coin hunter should remember. The date alone may not make a coin valuable, but condition, rarity, eras, varieties, and collector demand can completely change the equation. Before you spend your next 1988 P Washington quarter, give it a second look. Check the date, confirm the P mint mark, inspect the surfaces, examine the lettering and design, and look carefully for genuine minting abnormalities. You may not discover a fortune in every coin, but careful examination is exactly how collectors find the unusual pieces that deserve a second look. And remember, never clean a potentially valuable coin, because cleaning can damage the original surfaces and reduce collector appeal. In conclusion, the 1988 P Washington quarter is an interesting coin from the modern Washington quarter series, but an ordinary circulated example should not be confused with a major rarity. With more than 562 million produced, the circulated version is generally a face value coin. The real excitement comes from exceptional condition, legitimate mint errors, unusual varieties, and certified coins at the highest grades. If you discover a superb example, it may be worth researching further, because the market can become much stronger when a common date coin reaches an extraordinary grade. Next up, today we are taking a close look at the 1989 D Washington quarter, a coin that many people might overlook because it is commonly found in circulated condition. But could a worn or ugly-looking example have something special hiding beneath the surface? In this video, we will explore the history, design, minting details, rarity, collector interest, realistic market values, and the kinds of errors or exceptional conditions that can make an ordinary-looking 1989 D quarter much more interesting. Before you spend one for just 25 cents, take a closer look, because condition and unusual minting characteristics can make a major difference in the world of coin collecting. The Washington quarter has one of the longest and most recognizable histories in American coinage. The design was introduced in 1932 to celebrate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The original quarter was made primarily of silver until 1964, but beginning in 1965, the United States Mint changed the quarter to a copper-nickel clad composition because of rising silver prices. By 1989, the familiar clad Washington quarter was firmly established in American commerce. The 1989 D quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small letter D mint mark on the obverse beneath Washington's neck. Millions of these quarters were produced for circulation, meaning the date and mint mark alone do not make the coin extremely rare. However, collectors know that rarity is not always about how few coins were originally minted. Exceptional condition, dramatic mint errors, unusual varieties, and certified high-grade examples can create much stronger demand. The 1989 D Washington quarter has a face value of 25 cents and features the famous portrait of George Washington on the obverse. Around the portrait are the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date, 1989. The Denver Mint's D appears beneath Washington's neck. The reverse displays an American eagle with outstretched wings, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America, EPLUBUSUNUM, $quarter, and United States of America. The standard coin is composed of a copper core bonded between layers of copper nickel, giving the edge its familiar clad appearance. If you have a fine or heavily circulated example, you may see scratches, dull surfaces, discoloration, flattened details, or other signs of everyday use. That worn appearance normally reduces the coin's value rather than increasing it. The important question is whether the damage is ordinary circulation, wear, or evidence of an actual minting error. Here is where collectors need to separate fact from hype. A normal 1989 D Washington quarter in circulated or fine condition is not generally considered a major rarity simply because it carries the Denver Mint mark. Large numbers entered circulation, and many survive today. Therefore, an ordinary ugly-looking 1989 D quarter should not automatically be described as a coin worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. However, collectors actively search for unusual examples. A genuine dramatic mint error, such as a major strike-through, off-center strike, broad strike, clipped planchet, or another authenticated minting anomaly, can attract considerably more attention. High-grade coins are another category. Although circulated pieces are common, sharply struck examples preserved in exceptional mint state grades can become much more desirable. Professional certification can also be important because it provides an independent assessment of condition and authenticity. So what could a 1989 D Washington quarter actually be worth today? For a normal circulated example in fine condition, the realistic value is generally around face value, with a small premium possible in certain collector situations. In other words, an ordinary worn 1989 D quarter is typically worth $45,000. Better preserved uncirculated examples can bring more, while exceptionally high-grade certified specimens may command significantly larger premiums depending on their grade, strike quality, eye appeal, and market demand. Coins with genuine and dramatic mint errors can also sell for substantially more than ordinary examples, sometimes reaching $985,000 and potentially higher for particularly spectacular, authenticated errors. Auction records for exceptional coins should never be used to claim that every 1989 D quarter is worth the same amount. The exact value depends heavily on what makes the individual coin unusual and whether the claimed rarity can be verified. If you have a 1989 D quarter, start by examining it carefully under good lighting. Check the D mint mark, the date, the lettering, Washington's portrait, the eagle, and especially the edges. Look for unusual shapes, missing portions, dramatic doubling, abnormal metal flow, or other characteristics that appear inconsistent with normal wear. Be careful, because damage caused after the coin left the mint can look unusual, but usually does not add value. Scratches, dents, chemical discoloration, grinding, and other forms of damage are not the same thing as mint errors. Avoid cleaning the coin, because cleaning can permanently reduce collector appeal. If you believe you have a genuine major error or an exceptionally high-grade example, consider getting it examined by a reputable numismatic professional or authentication and grading service before paying for an expensive valuation. The 1989 D Washington quarter is a perfect reminder that coin collecting requires knowledge, patience, and realistic expectations. Most circulated examples are ordinary coins worth close to their face value, but that does not mean every example should be ignored. The real excitement comes from finding something genuinely unusual, whether it is a dramatic mint error, an unusual variety, or an exceptionally preserved specimen. So before you throw that old 1989 D-quarter into a vending machine or spend it as ordinary pocket change, take a few seconds to inspect it. You might not have a fortune, but you could discover a fascinating piece of American coinage worth researching further. Thanks for watching American Coin Value. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share for more rare coins, valuable coins, and exciting coin discoveries. Keep checking your pocket change. You never know when you might find a hidden treasure.